Here we are. Here's the little card I'm going to be making along with you today. If you like the jar of flowers, that's what I used to create this little card. It's called So Sweet, Thank You for Being My Friend. You will notice this stamp set does not have sentiments on it. It is strictly art. So what I've done is paired it with one of my favorite sentiment stamp sets or greeting stamp sets called Here's a Card. These little greetings are so sweet. They'll serve for lots of greeting occasions. There's a congratulations. I made you a card because you're worth it. You made my day. Thanks. Words cannot express the deep sorrow felt on your behalf. Thank you for being my friend. Happy birthday. Hello there. It's all messy. The hair, the house, the heart, life. May your heart find the peace it needs. I can't begin to count all the times we've laughed together. I'm here if you need me. This one coordinates with the congratulations on that thing you did. I'd give you a standing ovation, but here's a card instead. And mostly because numbers are hard. So that one coordinates with I can't begin to count all the times we've laughed. An adorable stamp set. This one is actually available now. It was introduced in the Occasions catalog that's going to be expiring on June 2nd, but it is in the new catalog as well. So when you have a stamp set that doesn't have sentiments, go-tos like this are perfect. You heard all the greetings that you can choose from to make a sweet card. So these are the two stamp sets I'm using. Of course, I'm going to be using the coordinating jar punch. I will be using the In Color Designer Series paper, which means it's pattern paper. And you can see I've already gone to town making some of these cards. I've got the bumblebee, and I chose this little dotted pattern. On the flip side is just a textured pattern. I'm going to need just a scrap of that because I only need a jar. And I went ahead and I pre-cut this cute white label. It is from the Stitch So Sweetly dies. It's got the pretty little scallop, and you can see the little stitching around the entire rectangle. So that was what I stamped on. I also need a little scrap of white, and I am stamping on, here's what I forgot to get. Someplace in my stash, I'll pull it out. I am using my In Color note cards as the card base. So I chose the Misty Moonlight. I'm going to have my coordinating envelope. And so that's the card I'm going to be making. You will notice that this image is colored. So there's lots of different things you could do with an outline image. I chose to go ahead and color it in. And today I chose a coloring tool that's really practical, really affordable. These are the watercolor pencils. This is the assortment 2, which means it has just this array of color in it. You can see a lot of the colors are kind of fallish, kind of deeper jewel tones. So those are the ones we're going to be using to color in those sunflowers and the foliage. Watercolors are a really great tool. You get a whole assortment for not a lot of money. When you use the watercolor pencils, you will need a blender tool, and these are sold in packs of 3. This is just for blending up the color, and I'll show you what I mean when I get to that step in the card. I stamped my image in Memento Tuxedo Black. That's the perfect choice when you're adding water to your color. That means this is a dye ink, so it's going to resist the water. It's not going to smudge, not going to blur. You'll get a nice crisp image. And I've already gone ahead and mounted my stamps onto a block. This is block D, and I think block D is probably the most popular block that I use. I've got 2. I've got my jar, I've got my sunflowers, and I've got that straw, and then I've got my sentiment, which says, thank you for being my friend. So there are the tools I need to get started. I'm going to need one more thing, and that's a card base that I'll dig through. I showed it to you earlier during the in-color assortments. All right, so I'm ready to get stamping. These are photopolymer stamps. So what I always suggest is that you stamp on some kind of a spongy surface. I like to use the piercing mat, and this is only $5. Stampin' Up! Initially was going to retire this, but I think they found out that we actually use it quite a bit for a number of different tasks. So because they're photopolymer stamps, they don't have built-in cush. The red rubber has a cush layer in it that gives you a nice crisp image. The photopolymer have just the photopolymer stamp, so no cush. Putting the mat down helps you get a nice crisp image. You can get away sometimes without using the piercing mat, but it's kind of a 50-50 chance. You don't want to be wasting your paper to find out that you probably should have used that piercing mat. So I'm going to stamp. I'm going to ink up in the tuxedo black. And I'm going to stamp on that Stitch So Sweetly label. I'm going to give it about 1/2 inch base border and kind of angle it just a little bit. And I'm going to ink down and press firmly. And I've got a nice black inking. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. So I went ahead and applied my stamp onto the acrylic block, and I'll tell you what I did. First, I took the stamp. I'll redo it. Because it's got wording on it, and you want to make sure that you get that wording straight, I'm using grid paper, so I'm going to put the words right down on the line of the grid so that they're straight, and then I'm going to go ahead and put my block right over top and make sure that the block is also aligned to the grid. That way I know the stamp is on there nice and straight, and I hope I did a good job. It's hard to look over without putting my head right between the camera and the project, so hopefully I get this right. I'm going to come up over almost to the left margin, coming up, and just press down, and got a pretty good inking. Thank you for being my friend. Now this is the red rubber. You can see the cush on there. I really didn't need to have the piercing mat on there, but just out of habit didn't remove it. Anyway, still got a nice crisp impression. The next thing I'm going to do, I shouldn't get rid of that piercing mat so quick. I've got one more thing to stamp. Might as well stamp it now. And I'll show you a trick I do, because this stamp is longer than my paper. And if I ink up completely, I'm going to get ink on this portion of this stamp. When I stamp down, it's going to make my piercing mat soiled. So what I often do is just go ahead and take my piercing mat, slip it right underneath my work mat. Now I still have that cush, and should I put too much ink on the stamp and stamp over the paper, I stamped onto my scrap mat, which is what it's there for, instead of on the piercing mat. So I still will have a nice clean piercing mat. So there we go. Keep your tools clean. Now I say that it's nothing critical if the ink does get on the piercing mat. All you need to do is take it over to the sink and wash it off. Looks like I need one more thing to stamp. Putting my ink away too soon. I need that cute jar. So here we go. One cute jar. And let's see, I think I have enough space here. Look how thrifty I'm being with my designer series paper. There we go. These papers, by the way, are 6x6. Some designer series papers are 12x12s, and some are 6x6. They all are double-sided, so you get to choose from 2 patterns, and sometimes that's an issue when they're both pretty. So here's my tip to get a nice clear cut. I'm going to turn my punch upside down, insert my paper, and I'm holding on at the top. I can still wiggle around until I find just the right angle. And sometimes I will clamp down tight enough to hold the paper but not yet cut. So it looks like I've got an equal border going all the way around. I'm ready to punch, and I got a nice clean jar ready to go. And the next thing I'm going to do, now I think I should have everything. I've got my straw, I've got my jar, I've got my flowers, and let me show you how I'm going to color them. All right, I said we were going to use our watercolors. I'm going to take out the colors I'm using and put the rest back. So I know I'm going to need this crushed curry. I know I'm going to need my garden green. I used a little bit for the cherry cobbler for one of the flowers. And let's see, what am I missing? Green. I think I've got everything. Let's hope. If not, I'll leave them right there. It kind of seems like something's missing. So the first step I'm going to do, I'm going to take my crushed curry, which happens to be kind of like a yellow color. It's kind of similar to the bumblebee. And the reason I'm not using the bumblebee is because the ink pads and markers were not available on the demonstrator pre-order. So I have to wait, like all other customers, until June 3rd to order mine, which is why I chose to use this crushed curry. So what I'm going to do with this watercolor pencil, it's nice and sharp. I'm going to bring it down on my image, and I'm just going to quickly apply some color. This is not like coloring back in the days when we colored in coloring books and we wanted everything perfect. I'm just going to get some color on all the flower petals, and I'll show you how I blend it in to make it look really pretty. So I'm just going around really quickly. You can get a great image without a lot of time. And another tip too is that I'm not going to be showing the entire flowers. That cute jar is going to be covering up some of the flowers, so I'm not going to use a lot of time coloring images that are just going to get covered up. So you saw how quickly I added to that. Let me go ahead and bring that up so you can see. It's not very detailed. In fact, it's just kind of like a scribble. Now the trick is in the blender pen. I'm going to come in with that blender pen, and you know, I've always wondered what is in this blender pen. It is moist, but it's not water. It has moisture, so you can spread that color around, and I would do it in layers of colors. So you don't want to get your Whisper White paper too moist because it'll start to crumple. So I add the color in layers. The first one was really quick and light and subtle. I'm going to come back in with that pencil and make some of the colors bolder. But what I'm doing right now is spreading that scribble of color that I added earlier. As I said, watercolor pencils are a good coloring tool. It doesn't cost much for the set, and I think this one must have like a set, maybe a set of 10. And I want to say they're probably like $15. I'm not good with my numbers anymore because too much info in my brain. So what I'm going to show, I went ahead and colored it in, pushed that color around. You can see it's still kind of light. So what I'm going to want to do is come back in with that color pencil and just add some more color. This time I'm going to be a little bit more strategic. You want to add like where the shadowy areas would be on the petals, darken them up. I'm still going to go back with that blender again. So that magic blender just does wonders for making you look like a great artist, which I'm not. So I've got my color going on here. There we go. And remember, not all of these flowers are going to peek through when we do our layout and design. So I added a little bit more color. Now I'm going to go back in and blend this in with the blender pen. And again, these are sold in 3 packs. They will last you forever because if you take care of them, if you clean them, put them away, the next time you need them, it's going to be nice, clean, ready to start on a new project. And I'll show you how I clean it. You can kind of see the tips a little bit soiled. All I'm going to do is come down to my work mat, brush until I see clear, and I'm then either ready to put it away or ready for the next color. And you can see not a lot of color comes off. The trick is to clean it before you put it away. All right, so now I'm going to take my garden green and color in the leaves. And I'm doing the quick once over, just like I did with the sunflowers. Just a little bit of green, a little bit of color from the pencil is going to go a long way. And this has several little flowers, different types of flowers along with the sunflowers. And I'm going to go in, same thing I did last time. I'm going to come in now with my blender pen and spread that green around, soften it up. Go up, now I can go up to the lines. Before I was just kind of scribbling right in the middle of the image. Now I'm going to color right up to the lines. All these little tiny leaves that are peeking through some of the sprays. Really easy. And just like I did with the crushed curry, I'm going to go back in and add a little bit more color. So another layer of color. Darken it up. So right now, this is my favorite bundle. This jar of flowers is too sweet. That sunflower is amazing. So striking. I know I'm going to have fun with that one. I'm going to add a little bit of pop using cherry cobbler on this lower flower here. And I'm going to make that nice and dark. It's always nice to have big pop of color on the card someplace. And I've got little tiny flowers up here at the top and another little one down here. I'm going to go ahead and blend that in again with my blender pen. Just pulling that color around. And a little bit is blending up at the top. I'm just about ready. I do want, let's see, I'm going to use this color called Cajun Craze for the center of the sunflowers and then the center of this budding flower up here. It's kind of like a golden or brownish red. And I'm just going to put in a little bit of color in the flower centers. And then of course the next step is going to be to pick up that blender pen and blend it in. And I'm done. So clean off the pen until it's clear. Perfect. So I've done my coloring. I am next ready to put on my jar and my straw. I obviously need to cut that straw, and I'm just going to use my paper snips. I don't even need the entire straw. I'm just going to cut half of it. This is just a rectangle, so little straight lines, cutting off the extra white. There we go. I know I'm going to want that to point there. I'm going to want my jar there. Maybe not so long. There we go. And I'm just going to put that little straw on with a glue dot. And I just go right up to my glue dots here. And now before I mount that, I'm going to add a little embellishment. I'm going to use that twine that's in the suite. Make a quick little bow around it. Just wrap it around once. And I'm going to tie it into a bow. So it's got a little bit of sparkle because of that silver thread. It's got a little bit of blue from the Moonlight Madness thread and a little bit of white. And now I can snip, and I think I'm going to snip it a little bit longer. I'll tell you why. This particular thread, it has 3 layers on it, and I like to knot it off at the end so that those threads don't unravel. So that'll keep it nice and neat on the ends, and obviously I don't want one too long. I'm just going to bring it up to a nice length and trim that off. I'm going to get my ribbon scissors, just like that. And before I put this ribbon away, I'm going to go ahead and tie that knot at the end. That way it won't be destroyed when I go to use it next. So that way it keeps all the layers intact for the next time you need it. Now I need this is going to be tricky. I showed it to you earlier, my card. There we go. I'm going to take one of those in color note cards. It's pre-scored, so all I have to do is fold it, get my bone folder ready. And so the bone folder should be in your toolkit. This is one of the basics. Press down. This little note gets flat adhered to the card base. So by flat adhered, I mean like snail adhesive. You could use Tombow liquid glue. There we go. And new catalog will have new snail adhesive of some sort. Haven't got mine yet because it was not on the pre-order. So I'm just as curious as everybody else what it's going to be like. So this fits right into that little dotted rectangle perfectly. Ready to go. I'm going to put my little jar on dimensionals. So dimensionals are those little foam adhesive pieces. You get quite a few on a sheet. They are double-sided, so I just peel it off. It's sticky on one side until I take off the layer on the back. Just going to put 2 down. And I'm going to just cut, and this is why I wasn't too worried about my coloring on the right, because my jar is going to cover that up. And there we go. There is my thank you for being my friend card. Of course, we've got the coordinating envelopes to go with it. And one last thing I wanted to show you. Let's see if I can find it. I had a sample. Well, you should see my work surface. It's a disaster. And I'm not finding my final box. I wanted to show you the difference in the watercolors, the blenders, and the watercolor pencils. So you saw me color today with the watercolor pencils. Last night when I was trying this out, I used watercolor, the aqua painter, and you can see when you watercolor, and by that I mean I just used some of the ink off of the ink pad and an aqua painter to color here. You can see the difference. The pencils are a little bit more vibrant. The watercolor is, the aqua painter is a little bit harder to control. You can kind of see how the paper is bending. That's because it had more more moisture in it, which is fine. When you put it down on your card and you secure it down, it's going to come up flat. But you just have to be careful that you're not using too much water. And so my last coloring tool I used were the blends. And you can see actually how much more vibrant the blends are as compared to the pencils and the watercoloring. So 3 ways to color. And I do like those pencils. They're handy to have. So you can see on this card I actually added some of those little in color embellishments. I used the cinnamon cider dots on this card and forgot to do it on here. You can see the little difference it makes. It just steps up your card with that little tiny embellishment. So there's my project for the day, using the Jar of Flowers bundle that's going to be in the new catalog. And of course I featured also, here's a card. And reminding you, this is going to be available on Wednesday, June 3rd. On Wednesday, June 3rd, I am going to be having an online catalog launch. We'll be doing some projects. I'll be offering you the make and takes in the mail. We'll be talking about more products because, of course, I'm going to be able to show you what's inside the rest of the catalog. And by Wednesday, I should actually have more things available to me. Keep that wish list handy for when you want to order. Don't forget about thinking about that $99 kit. It is a great deal. You get your discount every time you order. That's a 20% savings every time you order. Being part of my team, and I do have team members who are just hobbyists, meaning they just ordered that starter kit because they wanted to get a discount. And I do have team members who are making a business of this too. So I have a great mix of both stampers. We meet monthly. We have some challenges. We get together, share our creativity, share our ideas. It's really a nice group. If you don't have your new catalog, please post a comment. I will PM you with a message on how we can get together and get you a catalog if I need to ship it out or if you'd like to swing by and pick it up. All right. Thanks for joining me, guys. Happy Friday. Have a great rest of the weekend. Thank you for joining me. If you're not on my email list yet, make sure you click that button and join the mailing list. Have a great weekend.